Okay, if I can get you to take your places, it's 4:15, we'll get started.
Very high level.
We have a pretty lengthy agenda. I'm not sure that a lot of these items will take a lot of time. I'm hoping to be out of here 9:30 at the latest, but my goal is 6:15.
9:30.
What's for supper?
I bought supper last time, it was someone else's turn. Paul was supposed to bring supper.
Paul, you have
Someone
your
bring
usual spot
supper.
at the end of the table.
I mean, I like to cook.
You failed us
He doesn't
all.
eat, and it'll be healthy if we got our ourselves.
Okay, so
I thought that might be.
approval of the minutes from December 14th. I want to apologize to you again. I sent documents in, I was so proud of myself. I got some actually sent out a week before, and then a bunch of them changed, and that was what I sent late. I'll point out the changes as we get to those. There were no changes to the minutes. Did anyone see anything there that they would like to discuss further or think is incorrect?
That's the one I didn't print off.
All right. Those of you who are not hearing anything, those of you who are voting members, if you are in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. Opposed, same sign. Okay, the minutes are approved. Next thing on here is discussing the PTO buyback. This is the same scenario that you were presented for sure last month and maybe the month before that. I don't recall completely. The three scenarios were to completely eliminate the PTO buyback. That's about a $330,000 savings that would be realized in the next fiscal year, in fiscal year 20. We continued the buyback but reverted back to the $20 a day, which is what it was previous. That would save approximately $264,000, again realized in 2020. And if we leave the buyback policy as it currently is, obviously there's no net effect. From meeting with the mini board, at least in that setting, there's not a lot of support, if I gathered correctly, for messing with the PTO buyback. Thoughts in general from you guys? Cut it completely, cut it partially, leave it alone. What are you hearing?
Leave it alone. Leave it alone.
I think a lot of people, yeah, leave it alone.
Especially those that are in their later ends of the career are very interested in this, and the people who are in the early end, I think that they will see the benefit in this and will want this, obviously, but people in their first 2 to 3 years aren't thinking about the retirement part of it yet. I do want to know, though, this does tie to this because of the money amounts. Where are we in board-approved changes in terms of the money, the cuts for next year? What more needs to be cut? How much more?
Well, that's kind of a fluid number because we don't know who's going to retire or resign if they're a $55,000
Sure.
teacher or a $36,000 teacher.
Right.
So that's kind of in flux. Right now, I think Wes is thinking we need to cut somewhere, but he's sleeping over there. Somewhere between $1 million and $2 million. Wes, being the financial guy, would be more comfortable with $2 million. I think some of the rest of us are leaning toward a smaller figure. Would that be an accurate assessment, Wes?
Yes.
Okay. Based on what I've heard from the two board members that I meet with regularly, I'd like to just take a straw poll here. If you would give me a vote for either completely eliminating it, changing it to $20 a day, or leaving it as current, the board can then pass that on to the rest of the board as they discuss it at the board level. Everybody okay with that scenario? How many of you would vote to completely eliminate it? Raise your hand, please. I see 0. Changing it to $20 a day. Raise your hand, please. I see 0. Leaving it as current. That would be the rest of you. All right, thank you.
Okay, so can I have a little caveat to that?
Certainly.
My only caveat to that is that if we have to use that to get balanced, that would be the only way that I would ever say yes to away with it. Because I think that long-term it's going to do a really great thing. I think that it'll pay dividends. But in the situation that we're in right now, if push comes to shove and we have to do that to balance it, I want to do anything and everything in our power to balance the budget. So just so that I don't want to do it, but if push comes to shove, I would have to say if we all want to get to that place, that we might have to do it and then we would have to readdress it later. So my hope is that we can get there without it.
All right, any other comments on that topic? All right, next. Did you have something?
Well, kind of piggybacking off on that, I mean, I said yes, leave it. But if it's the difference between,
Jobs.
do we keep a job or two and this, I would vote differently. I mean, on this issue, in and of itself, not looking at anything else, I would say leave it. But again,
So if we decide we need to find 330 more thousand and the choice is between cutting this and eliminating 7 jobs, you would say,
I would say, that's me.
okay,
I would agree with her.
So,
So you would.
Maybe some combination thereof.
or combination
Or
thereof.
the
or something.
$20 a day and save a few jobs. I
Some-
agree
or-
with you.
Because there is
something.
still some,
I
because
agree
we do
with
still
you.
want to have, keep
Something,
some,
yeah, I agree.
Right.
some part of this so that it doesn't completely die away in the future.
I
Right.
agree.
I agree.
But I definitely agree with the keeping staff and jobs over this policy.
is that where you're leaning, Lori?
That makes my heart feel happy that you all would say that, because in some situations that wouldn't be the case.
Is this on the PTO, can I ask?
Yep. All right, on the staff reassignment plan, I sent out the document late. The one you were sent originally has just the top 7 bullets, and then the second one has an update as of January 18th. That was what I sent with the second group late today.
Oh, you
And
sent
Are you
this one
skipping
just today?
flex time?
Yeah, it was, did I?
Yeah, you did.
Where did my flex time sheet?
Oh, by the way,
I
that
have
previous
one.
item you need to change to EL buyback rather than PTO.
Okay,
True.
You started that.
yes, I did. Eric, could I look off of your flex time sheet?
This is the one you sent.
Okay.
This is the one that I had sent you.
You went back, you skipped
So-
it.
Okay.
That's the separate, okay. So I can send it to you.
Okay.
But this is the one that I had, since I had that.
There was a newer one than that,
This is the one that you gave, or the last one I met.
You sent out,
but there was a newer one that I sent.
No, we're going
Should
back.
you
be in
sent
there.
a second one later, so I don't know.
No, this is the stuff that I had before.
I'm sorry. I didn't get it all. She needs to talk to me. Privately.
Gotcha.
Obviously, we left it out.
Or you can just read the
It's kind of the day it's been.
Yeah, it's better
Um,
for me.
Is there some?
Let's come back to flex time. Skip that for now if you would. Let's go on the staff reassignment plan.
And you sent that
I
today?
sent an update of it today. The one that was sent out
didn't get it.
first.
I didn't get it today.
Okay, it would have been about,
Is it this
I don't have anything from
I didn't get anything from you today either.
Me either. Did you forget to hit send?
The document or
so.
It's in his outbox.
I was gonna say, I didn't think I received anything
Draft.
from you.
It's in your
I
draft.
bet it's in draft.
Or did it get
This
stuck?
really has been typical of me.
Nothing today?
I'm so sorry.
I do think that it would be worth our time for me to go make sure
Okay,
that
we'll
it
wait
gets
for
sent
you.
to
All right.
you. And I'll also grab the newest flex time version.
Okay.
Tuesday at
9:30 it is.
Okay, well, let's get back to it.
Yes.
Just
check
Did all of you guys get an email from me today?
Yes!
Excellent.
Good job.
Excellent.
Just got around to reading it.
Just got around to reading it, good. I did not realize that Eric had put together a version of, I think we were pretty much all in agreement about the flex time for non-exempt employees. That top section, we've talked about it several times. The only thing that's different on the top half from what you saw before is in the last line of the last bulleted item, I put in the words "the appropriate." Before it just said will require leave to be used. I put in the appropriate, because there are varying kinds of leave. Anybody have a concern about that addition? All right,
I think that's implied anyway, but that's fine.
well, implied was not always good.
Sometimes we have to straighten it.
Yeah. Eric, have you had a chance to check
And we look at
differences? Basically what I did was took these same kind of
Very
provisions
similar.
and
I called mine salaried staff discretionary leave.
Very fancy.
And I called it salaried because last time the discussion was that, like, you're not certified, but you are salaried.
Right.
So that
Smart.
was the reason that we.
Yes,
we
I like
used
that
the-
discretionary.
The salaried.
I like that
instead of certified.
verbiage.
Well, I think we should change EL to DL now.
let's just have A, B, C, D, E, F.
Hey, let's not get into the.
Because there are other salaried staff that are
Yes.
not, I mean, the whole professional schedule.
Right.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense to have it, it's more descriptive of the group of people that we're talking about.
Here, you read mine, I'll read yours. Because you know yours and I know mine.
I went.
I'm glad this is live and not social media.
She works with the worst. So do I.
I bet you do. I'm about ready to twist his neck.
David?
Well, not so much him, but
She ran
the stuff he's with.
Really?
We
So do
have
I.
mirror issues.
So you guys have the
Anyways,
same
we-
clientele.
They're like,
She's our social worker. Yeah, I knew that. She was
I
social
don't
worker,
think
but
that I
have to manage
notice
items.
anything
But
that's
it was,
different.
when we get to the railroad.
The concept of
And
it.
something with the radio transmission for
Are you
the,
okay with the?
shut our bus down.
I think that, I think that I'm fine
Brand new
with
bus.
That's
the wording, because I don't think that, did you read anything?
He's been a very nice guy to do.
I just tried to make it as close as
That is what I tried to
Pretty
do
big
to.
people.
Generally,
Well, no,
she's
never was
salary.
in school, but I also had an administrator that was
Good
amazing,
family.
and that would never.
They gave so much
Never
money to
had
our
behavior
foundation
problems.
and,
Yeah, Bodie, I mean, she's a
our foundation here ever did anything, I would reach out to them.
All right, those of you with a device that you can see the email that I just sent to you, if you look at that, I think it's the first page of that attachment, had the flex time proposed changed, and we've seen that several months, and I think we're all in agreement with that. The next section, I really like the title that Eric came up with. He called it Salaried Staff Discretionary Leave, because of the items we were just talking about, that not everyone who's salaried is certified. So that makes a lot of sense. And then the wording below that was and anytime we see certified staff, we need to say salaried staff. Change certified to salaried, any place you see it. So the first one, salaried staff would be allowed to leave the building during work hours in a situation where the time can be made up. And again, we had chosen from within the same week, within 3 days, or on the same day. We decided we landed on within the same week with hourly staff. I guess I see a difference there. If you can plan ahead for it, I think you ought to do it on the same day, because it's not, the hourly staff need to make it up so you can get paid for that hour. The salaried staff are going to get paid the same whether it's made up or not.
The only thing with that, I think that it might, if possible, it'd be great to make it up the same day, but sometimes it may not
Yeah, if it's
be
an emergency.
possible.
Because most salary staff have students, where some certified staff don't. So it would be
Right.
easy for them to make it up on the same day, easier maybe.
Right.
But your salary people that are covering classrooms and students may need more than just that same day.
Need to give them a little latitude.
Little flexibility there.
Within the same week, I think is completely
within the
fair,
same week.
and you're not trying to micromanage between groups. You say, within the same week, be done with it.
Wasn't there something though that Wes said that we needed to clarify the week, like it can't, I still feel like within the same week still leaves a little interpretation to what week, is it, you know what I mean, like, I don't know,
Sunday through Saturday. Our weeks are Sunday through Saturday.
I don't know, just
Say
to
it's
put
within the
that in there,
same
just,
payroll week.
yeah. I'm just,
That would be
but would
fine.
be, everybody know what that looked like, you know what I mean, Sunday through Saturday?
No, whatever terminology Wes thinks is fine to apply, so it's
I mean,
clear.
That's our work week. is
Would
Sunday
the
through
same
Saturday.
payroll week, would that be descriptive of what you said?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think that there should be a descriptor in there, just so that
Okay.
it clarifies, because that's been such a huge issue in the past.
All right, so in the parentheses, add within the same week, within 3 days, on the same day, we'll make it within the same, and between same and week, we'll put payroll, insert the word payroll in there.
And now for the salaried staff, that is a little bit, I mean, it might, I don't know.
If we
would
say
it
the
make-
same week, and then you put in parentheses, Sunday through Saturday.
I think that would be helpful for that, because
Okay.
since salaried staff aren't on, I mean, all of us get paid monthly, but it is,
Right.
most salaried staff don't think of it as weekly.
Okay, so after within the same week, I'll put in parentheses, Sunday through Saturday. And that should alleviate any misperceptions, shouldn't it?
You could do that up above too, in that first sentence for
Yeah,
the,
I'll make the same change.
yeah, so that way it reads the same for both
Pardon?
groups.
work on Saturday
and make it
No gray area.
Second line, or
Actually,
second
that's probably
little,
a good
second
point.
little paragraph, certified staff will not be allowed, but it should be salaried again. Salaried
Get what you
staff
pay for when you start
will not be allowed to
overworking.
leave during normal work hours without taking leave, if doing so will create the need for a substitute for the employee's regularly scheduled duties. That's analogous to what's up above. Everybody okay with that? Leaving during normal work hours should be used sparingly, not in a routine manner. That's basically verbatim from above. And salaried staff can't be absent during normal work hours for more than 1 hour in any day without taking the appropriate leave. And again, that's basically the same as above. Everybody thinking this is workable? Any detractors? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
You're gonna be married to it then.
Okay.
We
We will take that on to the next level of talks.
I'm just happy that we are looking at that and trying to be a little bit more flexible and understanding and human. Is a good, I like that word, you just mouthed the word. So I like that.
Contrary to popular belief, would you try?
Yes.
Yes. All right, staff reassignment plan. In your new email that you all got from me, the top 7 bullets are what we had seen previously, and there's an update in there. This past Tuesday, we had a meeting with the principals of, I think there were 6 principals here, Dr. Norman, Dr. Williams, myself, and we placed 28 teachers who had received surveys, 28 displaced teachers. These were all at the elementary level.
And middle school. And middle.
Well, elementary and middle, yeah. Middle to be, I guess, not middle now, but, and each of those teachers went to a building that they had listed on their survey. And the principals were told, hey, you can't pick a teacher if they haven't selected your building, and so those were kind of the rules that we used. And that leaves 45 certified elementary staff yet to be placed. Now, among those 45, there are about 15 who are in specialized programs, whether that's ESOL, special education. We do not anticipate any reductions in staff in those areas. We're going to have the same amount of special ed kids, we're going to have the same amount of ESOL kids, and those caseloads are already pretty large, so it won't be a matter of do you have a job or not, it will be a matter of where's my program now going to be located. And our goal is to, by the end of this month, kind of in the first week of February, to be able to tell people in those specialized programs where their program will be located. So that'll happen fairly quickly. Now, the rest of the elementary staff and the secondary staff is a little more challenging because we have now placed pretty much everybody that we know has said, I'm retiring, I'm resigning. Okay, so we made the placements that we knew of. The secondary in particular is more challenging because we didn't close any buildings, but we changed the schedule, which lessens the number of teachers that we need to teach the amount of classes that are going to be left in a 7-period day as opposed to 8 offerings in a block. The plan there is we had 14 secondary teachers that notified us before December 31st that they plan to retire at the end of the year. The way the staffing will work at the secondary level is with the creation of the master schedules, we'll have a really good idea of how many teachers we need in each content area. Like we'll be able to say, Benton needs 4 math teachers, 4 science, 5 social studies, 3 whatever. And do that with each of the secondary schools, the 4 middle schools, the 3 high schools. Then we'll look at our staff and say, Paul, I'm going to use Central as an example. Do you know right offhand how many math teachers you have?
Oh, gosh, I'm
Just give me a guess. 7 or 8, probably.
I think there's more than that.
Okay, let's say there's
10.
Let's say there's 10, because that's an easy number. All right, and when we reorganize, when you go from 8 classes to 7, you eliminate about 12.5%, not about, you eliminate exactly 12.5% of the student requests. So 12.5% of 10 teachers, roughly 1 point something teachers. Let's say it's going to be 1. Out of those 10 teachers at Central, if somebody resigns or retires, then we're good, because then there's room for all of the remaining math teachers. Let's say out of those 10, nobody decides to retire or resign. Then at some point, we would need to look at the other schools, the other secondary schools in the district and say, hey, did you lose more math teachers than, so that you now have an opening? And then we would reassign one of the math teachers at Central to another school with an opening. Worst case scenario is, let's say we need, I'm just going to make up a number, let's say we need 45 secondary math teachers, and we get about to April 1st and we still have 47, then we would have, that would be a situation where we would have to RIF 2 math teachers.
Assuming that those are all tenured?
We don't have any department where all of our staff are tenured. The only people that can be RIF'd, if there are probationary people available, are the probationary staff.
Okay, that's what I was.
Okay, you cannot RIF a tenured staff person when there is a probationary teacher in his or her area of certification. Any of their certification. And so that was the other thing I was going to say. If we've got 47, we need to get to 45. We look at the 2 that are up, are nominated, selected, whatever you want to say, for RIF, and we say, do you have any other alternative certifications? One of them says, yeah, I teach science. Well, if we have a science opening, then we place them there. If they say, sorry, math is all I can teach, then worst case scenario, there may be some people that will lose their jobs. But we would look at every other school and both at the middle school and the high school level before we would do that.
By statute, you have to notify probationary teachers by April 15th if they're not returning. So that's why that April timeline is so looming. That's by statute.
Right.
Brian, can we go back to the elementary where the counselor's placed?
No, it was all classroom teachers. And the reason
those were all tenured teachers that were placed?
no.
Far from it.
So,
At no point in time, Lori, was anybody told, by me anyway, someone may have said it, that tenured teachers would be placed before probationary teachers. What was said was that you cannot RIF a
Right.
tenured teacher when there are probationary teachers available.
so worst case scenario, I'm just wrapping my brain around it to make sure I got this correctly. Worst case scenario, if it's the elementary world, and you have reassignments that are made, even if some of those reassignments are probationary teachers, but then you have a tenured teacher unassigned.
That won't happen. Because in the next round of assignments, whenever we get 10 or 12 more resignations, then we'll look more heavily at tenured versus non-tenured.
Okay.
So is there a possibility then that somebody who is probationary that's already been placed, if,
No, there is not.
Wouldn't there be if we got to April or March, because you don't want to wait till April, and there still aren't enough positions for tenured teachers that are displaced, would you not have to remove one of those people that was placed? That was the question that came up in our building a lot because of how many non-tenured were placed, because it would make sense to place the people that you have to place.
We have other areas of certification. We have, I have a list of people who, for instance, are certified to teach special ed but are not teaching it now. That would be one place we would look. We have a number of active retirees who are taking positions that we would not bring them back if it meant that we had to ref a permanent teacher, not a permanent teacher, a full-time teacher now. I just don't think that is a possibility at this point. If that came true for some reason, then yes, we would have to look at people who'd already been assigned that were probationary. I'm confident that won't happen though. Other questions on the process? I know that's a lot to.
I do have a question. So you said that the first step in that, looking at how many sections we need in each content area and all of that stuff, happens after the master schedules are made at the secondary level, right?
Yes.
Okay, but at least what we were told today in our department meeting was that the master schedules can't be made until they know how many teachers are leaving because of resignment or because of whatever other reason.
Okay, that's very interesting.
So that, like I guess in my own department, no one knows where they're going to be because we know we've already lost 1.5 teachers. And so they don't know what the master schedule is going to look like. So we don't know, like for instance, I could lose one of the classes that I teach, which is fine, but at the same token, how do you fulfill, like if we need to cut another teacher from the English department, but we don't know that until after the master schedule is made, but we don't know that until after we know how many other cuts are made. Like how, I guess what I'm asking for clarification on is that how can we explain that to teachers, at least?
Okay. The process should work like this. The number of sections needed will be based on student requests. In some areas, yours for instance, you're an ELA person, correct? You know that every student's enrolled in English.
Right.
In some form or another. So you know, let's say you have 1,650 students at Central, you know there's going to be 1,650 requests for English, plus those who like it so well they double up.
But we don't have enough teachers to have double up now even, you know what I mean?
But we will have a good idea of the number of student requests. Dr. Hubbock and I visited about that this afternoon, and he said that he was fairly confident, at the latest by mid-February, but hopefully before that, the master schedules would be built, student requests would have been taken, and we would know how many sections of each class that we're offering, whether it's core or elective. And so at that point, then it will all fall together. We'll see, we've got the class requests for X amount of ELA teachers, and then we can assign them as quickly as possible.
Okay, I think that's misunderstood at some level then.
I
Or
have
miscommunicated,
no
I'm
doubt
sure.
No doubt that it is.
Okay, that's all I wanted to think about, because I could, as an ELA teacher, I teach what some folks are considering an elective in the gifted class, but if I have requests for gifted, but gifted is already being taken away because we have to absorb other sections, how, you know what I mean? I guess that it's in that kind of area, like that's where I'm confused, and then there are teachers who teach other things outside of that.
And it's kind of at the mercy of when people decide to resign or retire, which,
Well,
I mean,
no,
a lot of
it'll be-
districts are posting right now, but
As soon as we know the student requests and can generate the number of sections that are necessary, we're not going to be filling spots, not going to be filling persons into spots as much as we are reserving spots.
Okay.
We've got to have 7.5 language arts teachers, not sure who they are yet. And then the principal will have the opportunity to meet with his or her staff and say, okay, well, this is primarily English 1 who won, so I'm assigning you to English 1 that way.
so it has to be, contracts have to be done by April 15th, correct?
Yes.
For probationary.
For probationary.
They have to know whether they're gonna be retained or
Invited
not.
back or not, yeah.
So my question would be, so you tell probationary person X that they're not gonna be asked back because we don't have enough spots for them at this point. Then April 20th, a tenured person finds a job somewhere else and leaves, does that person get precedent?
Anybody who is first of all, there's a very big distinction between non-renewal and
Right.
reduction in force. Non-renewal means that we have not invited you back because of some sort of performance issue.
Right.
If they've been non-renewed.
I'm saying just
Yeah,
rift,
okay,
they're
well, I just
rift.
wanted to make sure because some people put those in the same sentence. If you've been non-renewed, there's no recall.
Yeah, right.
Required. If you've been RIF'd, that means that we feel like you are a valuable asset that we would like to keep, we simply cannot. And in that case, yes, they would be asked back. And I'll guarantee you that that's gonna happen, probably more than once.
Right.
Where after, because there's a lot of hiring that goes on after April 15th.
Absolutely there is.
And in fact, that next full month is one of the prime times. Between the middle of April and middle of May, there's a lot of hiring going on. So yeah, but that's the worst case scenario, but it will probably happen a number of times, where we'll have to RIF somebody and then hope they're still available when we can invite them back.
There are a lot of retirements that happened that last month, because one of the hardest things to do is decide when you're gonna retire, if you're really ready or not, and some know right away, in January and February, and a lot of them, and of course, that's your tenured teachers retiring, so there's a lot of retirements in April and May.
When people are being RIF'd, first of all, have people been RIF'd at this point?
No.
No. Have people only been non-renewed? Or the conversations that they've had with their principals saying your position is gone, because that has happened. Where are we in that? Because people who have had those conversations have come to me and said, I really don't even know what this means. Am I not being renewed, or am I just kind of in limbo waiting to see?
Very good question. There have been no official RIFs, there have been no official non-renewals.
Okay.
We kind of have set as targets the last meeting in March for non-renewals, the first meeting of April for RIFs. The principals were instructed to talk with people in their buildings and say, if we get into a RIF situation, well, they should have, if there's somebody in their building they're going to non-renew, they should have been having multiple conversations
Right.
with them all along. If there's somebody that, if we get down to it, that would be RIF, they were instructed to give those people a heads up, because I only think that's fair to employees to say that, if we get to that situation, I would be nominating you or selecting you to be RIF'd. No official action's been taken. If I were in that situation, I would want to know that, so I would look at my other options. So that's all that has happened at this point. And like I said, I think that's only fair to those employees to give them a heads up. So if they do choose to look outside the district, they've got an extra 2 months, 2.5 months.
I understand that. Thank you for that. That helps me with
Yeah.
that. People at the high school level.
The second one in March.
Did I say second?
The second meeting in March.
Second.
Yep.
Okay.
I may have said first.
I may have written it down wrong. Now that we're back to what I was thinking. So, for the high school secondary individuals who have been told, had this conversation, they've been asking me also, well, the elementary has had the survey of where you would like to go, or to know what you're qualified to teach, to ask about that. Some of our high school teachers are certified to teach elementary and would be happy to go there if they had to, but is there going to be any kind of a survey for the secondary staff to put in
Yes.
all of that information?
There will.
Okay.
First of all, we know what everybody's certified to teach. 3 months ago, I printed off a
you
list that
did?
has
Okay.
everybody's.
Okay, good.
But that will still be on the survey. There really has been no need for a survey yet because we don't have known posted openings
Right.
to say, do you want to move here?
Okay.
Well, if I sent a survey out now, it would be, do you want to move to these openings? Well, there are no openings.
I get that.
So,
I was
yeah.
just curious, and that's
And-
the question I've been getting.
I think I sent out an all-staff email a day or two ago trying to explain that at the secondary level, there's just simply nothing to tell you yet. And I know that hurry up and wait is not a good thing, but there simply is nobody that we can place yet because we don't know where there are openings.
Right. Okay.
So we will, believe me, we want to get this done as quickly as we possibly can too. It's not that we're dragging our feet or anything, it's just there's simply nothing more to do right now. Other questions?
How's
Oh,
it-
classified stuff. Same thing there. We really don't know, it's one of these. We simply don't know yet enough to bother sending out a survey. We will only send this, for the classified staff, we'll only send the survey out to those who have been displaced, which would be from Lake and Humboldt. With other teachers, non-displaced classified staff, we're not entertaining any transfer requests. It would muddy the waters too much. We've got more than enough on our plate with that. Okay, so haven't forgotten about classified, haven't forgotten about secondary. There just really isn't anything to tell you yet. Okay. Anything else on the staff reassignment? Okay. If you can do anything, just tell people we're working on this as hard as we can. Please be patient. Like I said, we don't want to wait any longer than we possibly have to, because the longer we wait, the more chance there is of some of our good people leaving us. And we don't want that to happen, obviously. Okay. Budget reduction discussion. These are some of the smaller topics, and what I want to do today is just basically get from you yeah, we ought to pursue that farther, no, we shouldn't. All of these have been brought up to the board in some form or other, I believe, except maybe this one. Have you guys seen that at the board level? Okay. So the pay to participate, and again, I'm trying to train myself to say pay to participate instead of pay to play, which is more common. Pay to participate means you can be on the team. Pay to play kind of says, well, I paid, I ought to be playing, and I'm not, I'm sitting on the bench. So it's pay to participate. The suggestion has been $50 per activity at the high school level with a max of $250 a year. And how would you decide what you have to pay for and what you don't? Anything that has a paid sponsor would be on the list of pay to participate. At the middle school level, $25 per activity for a max of $125. There was little to no support at the board level for totally eliminating middle school sports. That was on the list previously, and so that's why we're not having that discussion anymore. When we did the survey, there was overwhelming majority, 9 of 11, for reducing or eliminating sports activities, and 8 of 12 for reducing or eliminating the academic activities. So that's why we're talking about this. Don't know, I don't have a good feeling for where the board would go on this. I think there's a lot of angst about the topic, as I'm sure you guys have heard from people. Are you guys, is the like 9 of 11 and 8 of 11, are the majority of you still feeling like there should be a pay to participate structure of some sort? Okay, I see lots of nods
No, I don't want to do it.
and a head shaking from
As a
Paul.
coach, as a former coach, and I think it'll be death to the sports in this town.
So
I think
you,
you'll see them completely implode.
but if we cut them completely,
You know?
then
Okay. I'm just expressing my opinion. I mean, I'm just telling, so I'm at Lafayette as the head football coach, and superstar A can't pay. I guess I'm footing the bill?
well, I think
That
there's
would
some
be a bad
regulations.
idea.
Bad idea,
Yeah,
but
there's certain things.
that's
that
what I'm
need to be
saying.
done.
Who's gonna foot the bill? Someone's gonna help these kids
Didn't we
out.
discuss last time that there are lots of
Someone's gonna
Community.
pay for it.
communities, avenues for those kinds of things?
A question that I had on that, and
I'm just
I
being
just,
realistic.
I want to, I might be misspeaking, you might be able to tell more, but from what I understood, okay, so right now, kids pay for MSHA fees. I think it's $35 a year at the high school
We have
level.
how many not paying probably ever.
I understand,
Crazy, yeah. It's
but
crazy.
I was told by an administrator that all 35 of that dollars does not go towards MSHA. That there's a portion that goes to MSHA and then there's a portion that goes somewhere else.
I thought Michigan prorated that out to how many you have on the thing, and then you get billed. When I was AD, I remember there was a formula that calculated it out, and Angie had to pay the
I'm
bill.
asking. Because
That's
my
what I
thought
thought.
process in that is, if that's the case, then why not reduce the MSHA fee? I don't know where that extra, or however that
There's not an
works.
extra that I can account for in Central's MSHA fund.
But
What
like
we
when
bill
you,
for is about what we collect, so I don't know.
but what I'm saying is what you bill for,
Oh.
then you send to wherever that goes. That doesn't go straight to Misha from Central. It goes to downtown, and downtown pays a fee to Misha from the district
Misha
period.
sends us a bill, and
Okay.
then I take that bill and process it and send it to downtown, they pay, but Misha sends it to usually us or downtown.
Okay, then maybe that person misspoke.
It's really unnerving to me as a board member to hear how all these Misha fees haven't been paid. So that will be something that we will be on top of big time, and that'll be paid along with the pay to participate fee before a child's issued a uniform, let on the field or the court, because we're not gonna have all these people owing the whole reason we're doing this is to get ourselves in a better financial
Right.
position.
That's
But
And
we
so-
have that same situation with Chromebooks, that kids don't pay
Yeah.
for their Chromebooks, they don't pay for their meals, they don't
I'm
pay
more
for.
worried about
Library
Chromebooks. We spend.
Well, I
mentioned
guess
this to
right now
Wes.
I'm
We have
talking about
Chromebooks.
extracurricular, because we require them to have the Chromebook to educate them, that's something, not that we shouldn't, but I'm talking about when it's extracurricular and they're participating in choir or band or football or whatever, that's a choice they make and their parents make, and their fees ought to be paid, and all the fees will be paid before they participate, period. I mean, it's I can't even fathom that we have all these people, who don't pay these fees. Because that's part of our problem, and so we're gonna have to get really strict, and we are. I feel as a board, that probably will be I'll be pushing it if you can't tell. That's something that we are gonna be extremely strict, because why put it into play and then not collect the fees? The whole point behind it is, we're trying to alleviate some financial burdens.
Well, it seems like we're not being consistent, and that's
Yeah.
what we're trying to do across the board, is be consistent.
But I don't think you're still gonna get consistency in some places, even with that. Because it's just like what he said, if you have a superstar athlete and you have a kid that can't pay, somebody's gonna pay that fee for that person. You know what I'm saying, I mean,
Well, here's what
but
I was
at another
kind of
building that
alluding to.
maybe doesn't have the superstar, and they don't have the resources to be able to get the money for them, they may not have fees paid.
Well, I'm not, the huge sports person, but I do know that there's some sort of a rule or a law that somebody else can't pay some things for students, because then it gets them from being
They become a professional.
they
athlete.
become
Yeah.
a professional athlete.
In other words, we can't have our staff paying it, but there are ways. Your booster club could have them work at the concession stand for 2 or 3 games during basketball season, and they'll pay their way. The booster club can pay their way to play football or
Well,
whatever.
they
There
can
are
pay the
things to
student,
do. We're gonna have to
student
get
can pay
creative,
it.
but people, you don't think we haven't had to get creative as a board and cut $7 million? I mean, we're gonna have to get creative in a lot of ways.
And again, we said it at our last meeting, our parents aren't exempt from the fallout of this not passing. If we cover it for them, they're gonna see, they didn't need that money, so they made it work. Like, we've made it work far too long, and I think it's only fair that we're taking such a huge hit, our parents are gonna have to bear some of that too.
How many of you in the room have had poverty training? Either through
I was gonna say,
Ruby
Ruby
or
Payne
something
will
else?
tell you,
Okay.
they will
They'll
come
come
up
with
with
them,
that
yeah.
money.
Yeah.
They're carrying that cell phone, they're
Escapes,
wearing
they're
those
really
tennis
doing
shoes, they've got that big
Yep.
screen TV, and when it's important to them, they will come up with that money. I mean, if we were asking them to pay $250 to play football, no. But we're asking, and a lot of those kids can have jobs and pay it themselves from jobs over the summer or whatever at the high school level. Now, $25 at the middle school level is not an unreal amount of money. And again, Ruby Payne will tell you, and I know you all had Ruby Payne last year because Marley brought her in. And just, there's just a ton of truth to that, and I've seen it over and over again. And I'm sitting here, and my son-in-law is coaching a sport at a school where he's already told me 3/4 of his kids can barely get the physical money together. But you know what, I still have to, it's not about him and that school and those kids, it's about the entire district and what we have to do to rein in and be creative and get this balanced budget.
And I've got doctors that will give kids physicals for free,
That's
so
right.
that we
Yep.
have athletes that will be able to
So what
play.
Resources
And
like
I
that,
transport them to
resources like
those
that will
doctor's
be
appointments to get
needed-
them eligible.
will be needed. I mean, and having a
Like a directory.
having a
of
directory, I
other
guess, if you
resources.
will, of those types of resources.
Well, your
will be very
secondary
important
schools have social workers.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's the
But not
percentage?
not every kid or everybody who may be in that position may know that that's who they go to, and they
So
may
we'll
not
have
tell
to-
anybody.
We'll have to
So
advertise.
so those are the hard things. So we'll have to figure out ways to be creative, like you said, to make sure those things are not handed, but the opportunities are given to those students. I do want to play devil's advocate though on this. What potentially could happen to attendance if we have students and parents that won't pay it or can't pay it, even though some will find the money? What if some don't or can't? And then will we have an impact, a negative impact to our attendance? I'm just curious because we have to look at all
Because they're not
parts of this.
participating, you mean, so.
Because,
And see, that was my
the
big
reason they
argument.
come to school is because I do this.
And that was my big concern when I heard eliminate middle school sports as a middle school teacher. Are you kidding me? Do you understand how those kids come to school, especially in the 8th grade,
Yeah.
because they know they better and they keep that grade up because they know they better, or they're not gonna be participating, you know, so I agree with that. But I don't think that's as big of an impact, you know.
Excuse my
Again,
ignorance, but you do have an academic requirement for students to be able to participate,
Right,
right?
that's what I mean.
Yes.
It's either below
They're
C
still
or
academic.
whatever, and they can't.
And that's what I mean, but
participate.
if we eliminate the sports at the middle school level, what's the
No,
incentive
I
to keep that grade
I
up? and-
fully subscribe because it's part of essential
Right.
personal development, fighting childhood obesity, the whole shooting match, to keep them involved in physical activity as well as mental activity in the school environment. So I'm fully on with keeping middle school sports.
Okay,
We're
so
getting a little more into the minutia here
Yeah.
than I want to, we really will be here till 9:30. At this point right now, what I kind of want to have is, yes, I'm still interested in looking into pay to participate, or no, I think that's a bad idea. So if you think it's still a good idea to at least do something along this line, raise your hand, please. 3, 4, 5,
Can we be?
6,
Yeah.
okay.
My
Pass
hand's
and
I hate it,
definite
but.
I know, my hands is not
Did you say the opposite?
Yeah, okay, 2 of you. All right,
So can I ask one question though? What is the percentage of the kids that are currently not paying those fees? Do you have any idea?
As far, when they're seniors, if they're still at the same school, they will have paid those admission fees at most schools because they don't get their graduation tickets at Central. Each school does a little bit different. Lafayette, they keep their, everybody does a little bit
So
different.
they have to catch up
So they have to catch up eventually.
eventually.
The problem is if they leave,
Yep.
and then it's
That's a problem
gone.
with almost everything.
And that's why you
Chromebooks,
just don't, I mean, you
they
don't
go
give them a
out.
uniform, you don't let them on the court or the field or in the band room until it's paid.
Every year.
Kids can get.
okay, moving along to high school summer activities. This is part of the extra duty schedule, which I think was also in that email that I sent you this afternoon at some point in time. We currently have 48 employees, 16 at each high school, who receive $1,810 to supervise the weight room in the summer. That totals $86,880. I met with Dr. Haynes, who is having a meeting with all the ADs tomorrow, I believe, and they're going to talk about this. The 2 recommendations that have been bantied around by, and this is between he and I, my sense would be that it either needs to be eliminated entirely or we need to cut it back a whole bunch, like maybe 2 per school instead of 16 per school or something like that. I was a coach forever. I understand the importance of the weight room. I also know that I did it for years for free. Just knowing that that's a part of what you do to keep your kids in good shape. I've heard comments from a couple of the board members that we shouldn't be paying, and there's also a couple that say, yeah, we should. So I'm not sure exactly what the 7 would say. I think the mini board is a eliminate it kind of vote or not.
This former athlete knows it's important to do, but I don't ever want to pay $86,000 to do it. But I would say,
I would say my concern is the number. And if you choose to keep it, but you say instead of having 16 at each high school, and you say you can only have
5 or something.
4, 2 or 4, how do you come to decide who it is that gets?
Well, wasn't it, it was cut last year already?
No.
Yeah, yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Because they they reduced the amount of people that they could have in the, because normally, I can only speak from my household. My husband's a coach at Benton High School. Last year, he did not get paid for it because they only gave basketball 2 spots instead of all 3
The
coaches.
school still had 16 spots. How they
How they
allocated
do it
may be
is their
different.
own.
But there was no reduction in the number. I know I did the schedule
How
myself.
they not have to get in the way, that's just personal.
So, what,
It was all at the discretion of the building leadership who
AD.
got to do that.
but it
Provide
was,
those-
but there was a reduction in the amount of how many were paid.
No,
No.
No.
there was
That's
no.
not what was explained, but anyway.
They chose a different 16.
As a parent of an athlete at one of our high schools, my daughter plays high school softball. She was in the weight room with a football coach for the summer program for a period of time 2 seasons ago. That football coach did not know how to train my daughter as a softball player and had her doing weightlifting that actually in turn injured her arm, and she was ineligible to be able to play softball for several weeks that following season because of the injury I'm just saying, like, you can say reduce, but a softball coach being in there training their players versus football being trained is 2 totally different things. So just speaking as a parent, and same thing with basketball. I mean, it's everybody gets trained differently, and so I feel like that's also a piece where those are where relationships are built with those coaches, and being able to establish what your programs are made not during the season. They're made during preseason, during postseason, during summers, and so
Here'd be another way to look at it. What 2 jobs do we eliminate so that we can continue this?
What 2 teaching jobs
Yeah,
do we
that's 'cause
eliminate
that's
so
what
we
that
can
would
continue
not
to have weightlifting?
Well, and even at the board meeting, when we were having this discussion, I know that Dennis was very vocal about that this is just part of the coach's job. And there were people actually sitting in the audience
That were
that I
shaking
saw
their
that were
head, yes.
shaking their head, yes. And this sort of goes back to the thing that I have been asking since day one being on this board. Is this a part of your regular duties?
That you're already
I
getting
mean,
your
yeah, because if
stipend
we
for.
extend
My
that
husband
logic,
gets a
then it's
stipend
part of my
for-
regular duties to grade papers. I
Right.
don't get extra money to
There you
grade
go.
papers when I'm outside of school, you know,
Right.
it's part of
Yeah.
my job.
So that's always
They're already
what
getting
but that's
I.
not in the summer. You're
I've
not grading
always-
papers in the summer unless you're a
But I'm
summer school
planning for
student.
the school year during the
Coaches are
summer,
already
Most
also getting
definitely.
paid.
or taking professional
Dr. Newhart,
development on my
did you
own
have something
dime.
to say?
I think from, this is after attending the MISHA meeting last week as well, and I kind of thought this myself, but that helped verify it with the ADs and principals. From a liability standpoint, I think it'd be a mistake not to have the weight room ran during the summer. How that happens, we've got to support that as a district. And to speak to your individual weight program versus the football, or it might be where the mentality needs to change, where you have a core program and then you branch off from there.
And then the coaches themselves
And,
branch
you
off.
know, Blue Springs, Lee Summit, they run every single athlete through that program, and they all do the same core program.
They also get paid a whole lot more money.
Well, that's correct too, but
Their
I think we
stipends
could do
are what our
something
stipends are.
similar, but there's gotta be a shift in our thinking in the weight program at each, particularly at each high school. But from a liability standpoint, I think it would be a miss to completely eliminate, like you said, Lori, to 2 or 4, whoever that 2 or 4 is. That's got to then be worked through on what type of program with the athletic directors on how that program is ran. So we do meet the individual needs of the student athletes.
But you also could meet that need by having that football coach in there with their players, and not, those players aren't in there without that coach, and you're still not paying them any extra because you paid them in their stipend. I'm saying there's a way to meet that too, and the other way that we're talking about doing away with paying anybody, and coaches take their own teams in and their own players in to train the way they want to train them. You know, I mean, that's the other way to meet the liability part of it.
Well, the whole question is though, then, if that will be done, because they're not required to do it.
Right, that's up to the coach, and that goes back to what
But
Dennis was
that's not
saying.
necessarily meeting your liability
Well, they're not in there without someone supervising them, and that's what the liability deals with. Someone
Fundamentally,
who's-
though, it might be boiled down to just having a set of training and awareness materials and protocols, no matter who's in there, to reference to for this sport or that sport or this gender or that gender. Then you don't have to worry about who's in there, as long as they're basically qualified, whether it's a football coach or a
That's what
baseball
I'm
coach or
saying.
And
whatever.
that's what he was saying
You
about
have those
having a
reference
core
materials
study,
and those
having a
resources
core.
there, then you don't have to worry about who's in the room. Because they have the materials there and they're not gonna be misguided in what they're having your daughter do or your son do or whatever.
So isn't this a situation where you could task this to the ADs to say, you need to get together, this has to be reduced, you know, figure it out, come up with a correct protocol that will be uniform?
Cause I'll tell you,
But
I
is
was,
it part of their pay already?
For summer,
That,
that stipend is supposed to be for their season.
30 years ago,
yes, but today, no.
My husband works 11 months out of the year
I'm
on
saying
that.
pretty clearly, 30 years ago, yes,
Buckets of
today,
sand
no.
and water.
But at the same time, you know, I got a ton of phone calls last year, and I'll just say from Central High School people who are not happy with how that was handled and who got to be in the weight room and who was being discriminated from being in the weight room, and it was a mess. And I don't know how many emails and phone calls I rerouted to the right people. And so, yeah, there needs to be and the ADs need to figure it out, and if you limit it to 5 people, then they figure out those 5 people. And you know what, the rest of them live, and I would think you'd have one from each sport, if that's male or female.
Or you have a generalist.
Or you have a
strength and conditioning
generalist,
coach that
yeah. A
understands all of
condition
it.
coach, that's right, and if we have those, who do we have? Yeah, but surely,
Okay, I think we have
Anyway.
consensus that we just need to relook at that and we need to streamline that.
maybe
Would you agree?
drastically cut rather than
I would
eliminate.
agree.
Would you agree with that? That would be
Okay,
my take on it.
these others, I don't want to spend a lot of time on. The IB test fees, the IB test fee, that's not nearly as time sensitive as a lot of these things. That decision can be made in January, it can be made in May. It really isn't going to matter. It is a significant amount of money, $60,000, and I know there are discussions going on at Central about that and other places as well. Anything that any of you are dying to say about that topic before we move along?
I could see from an outsider looking in and the people that say, I understand we are talking about making cuts to sports, but if we choose to keep almost $90,000 worth of weight room supervisors and then we cut something that impacts them academically, there's going to be a lot of unhappy people.
I
So
understand that.
I would say
that would be the only thing I would say. to that.
students choose to take IB courses, and if you choose to take the course, then you could choose to pay the testing fee.
I think that's
I-
almost like
Is that
pay to
almost like
play.
pay to participate?
It's
Can
pay
I
to
pay a portion of the
I think
fee,
it is,
pay
you know, I
the
mean, it's just like
$50?
if, you know, you take the dual credit course and you want the dual credit, you pay for the credit yourself.
That's right.
And you know, one of the things that's been brought to the board is the number of kids that take this test and don't pass it.
Yes.
It's floored me. So we're gonna spend $60,000 and maybe 3 kids pass the test. Are you kidding me? You know, so when their parents have to pay for it.
And you only
then-
have it at one high school. Right.
Well, but we have open enrollment
It's
so
open,
that
I
other kids can
understand
go
that.
there. I mean, we have that covered. We have open enrollment so kids that want to participate in IB can go to Central, no problem. Am I right? Paul, isn't that right? So, but the thing is we pay for so many kids to take it and they don't pass it and it, you know,
Well, and again, we've talked about this at board meetings, and I know that Dr. Hubbick has stood up and he's talked about, you know, this doesn't always come down to what the test score was. And it's also a learning opportunity. And sometimes you have to give those kids the learning opportunity to be able to experience it, to see if this is something they're actually even interested in. I think, again, that needs to have work done, but I guess Central High School needs to decide if they want that program or not, because if we take
It's a
this
lot.
away, we have
You're making the
parents.
gate much smaller, which, and then the classes might not make the sizes and stuff like that, so it's.
Well, we've had, over the years, we've had parents come every single year and saying, if you don't pay as a district for these tests,
Yeah.
my child cannot participate in that.
Yeah.
And I know that we've talked about sliding scales for all of the different tests, and if we can get to that someday, I'd be happy. But the IB keeps coming up, and if people keep complaining about it, Central High School, I guess, needs to decide whether they want that program or not. Even though
But
it took 4 years to get it in place and all the money that it took.
How
to get
different
it
is
there.
that though than the dual credit classes? I mean, I don't know, my kids.
I don't think it is.
My kids have taken.
It's not any different to me than dual credit.
And we, I mean.
It's just
Well,
another
there's a very
academic program
specific
that's
curriculum that goes
It's
with
a
it.
different-
I mean, it's a different.
I'm saying-
Different style
Graduate with
basis.
it and
She's
with
saying
the
for
diploma.
paying it.
I'm just saying, but I had
They
to, I had to
can,
pay
yeah.
for the dual credit classes if my children took dual, I have to pay for the PE class that my kid goes to the Y in, you know, I mean, I have to pay those things, how is that, that's academic, you know, I mean, I just, my whole thing is if we're not paying any other academic fees for people, why are we still paying this one?
And really, this is, to me, is an administrative decision, you know, so many things because of everything that's crazy has happened. Come to the board, that should no more come to the board. We've had this discussion many times, I'll be glad when now everything comes to the board, that's really left to our administration. So I think it's up to central administration. I would highly count on their recommendation of what should happen with the program.
It's a curriculum item, and all curriculum items per board policy is a board decision.
All curriculum,
To approve the curriculum you're offering is a board decision.
But is the paying for the test a part of the curriculum?
That's the debate, not
yeah,
necessarily.
yeah.
Okay, let's,
So that one needs more work as
Yeah.
well.
let's move on to extra days. Put this one on here because of the amount of money. The counselors are primarily the ones that have extended day contracts, and I am in no way saying counselors don't need any extra days. We currently are paying out a little over $45,000, and what I would like to instruct, I've talked with Dr. Haynes, and he's going to meet with Kim Hill, and to have them examine, do they really need all of the days that they have? For instance, at Central, one counselor receives 13 days, the other 4 receive 9. If they're using those, there's a step that they have to do, great. If there's any extra in there, then we need to look at it. So that's why the elementary counselors all have 1 day for registration. Obviously, they need that because you have to have a registration day, so that wouldn't even be worth looking at in my mind. So it's not a, hey, we need to rip all these days away. It's a look at, do they need the number that they have, and are they used effectively? If they are, I say we leave them alone. If the information comes back and says, you know, we could probably eliminate 2 or 3 of these days, then I think we obviously need to pursue that. So that's kind of,
Just an
Yeah,
FYI, on our end, I mean, obviously, I don't represent the counselors at this table, but obviously because I'm in that department, I had to be the ear for a lot of people, and they're very concerned about the reduction, even a reduction of days, just simply because
And they're
of
gonna
the
have some
amount of work.
additional
And they're getting
duties.
additional duties put on them.
Right.
With the 504
being
plans.
put on them, they're really gonna be stretched thin.
They feel like they took one for the team with the 504 situation. They feel
Right.
like they shouldn't have to take another.
Changing the scheduling as well, and dealing with a different schedule and trying to place kids. and
Especially
making
your
sure that everything's
secondary
right
that's
in
going from
secondary.
block
I-
to-
that's
And
gonna
you
be
have
a-
2 middle school counselors
Right.
who are taking on 6th grade, which are self-contained, which is gonna be a whole different ballgame for them.
Maybe they're self-contained, they have
okay,
choices.
so this was,
That's fine.
put this on your radar. We're going to look at it.
No, I
I
just,
feel like it needs to be looked at.
it's up to the principal how they want the rest.
Okay, proposed salary schedule changes in, historically, and Wes, I'm gonna need you to jump in here some probably, since you did all the real work on this. The explanation of proposed salary schedule changes. In the last 2 years, since I've been here, and this was in process before I started, but we've been looking at all the salary schedules and trying to make them equitable and fair to all employees on the schedules. We've overhauled a great many of them. Really, the only 2 that are remaining were the professional staff schedule and the administrative schedule. The main problem that we saw on those, every other schedule we have as you move from left to right, from range 1 to range however many are on that particular schedule, the size of the step increases as you go from left to right. And those size of the steps are based on the step 1 of whatever range you find it in. So if for entry teachers, it's 36,200, and I don't have it right in front of me here, I don't have the teacher one in front of me, but year one for a doctorate is going to be significantly more than $36,200. So it makes sense that the step for someone over there is larger, and I think if you look at it, you'll find out it is. Same way for our, every salary schedule we have is like that. It increases from left to right as you go across the schedule. The administrative schedule did not do that. Every step, whether you were in column 1 or column 9, was $1,539. To me, that made no intuitive sense. It's not equitable if you're at step 1 of the supervisor schedule, which is 54,748, and you're at the first step of the assistant superintendent, which is 130,218. It makes no sense that the step for those two employees would be the same. Typically, raises are given in terms of a percentage. It's a percentage of the base we always talk about. Okay, so what has been done on the professional staff one I think was in your pile first, so go ahead and look at it. The current schedule, and then the page following it is the proposed schedule. If you look across the first step, range 1 through 7, they're all the same. So the base step or the first step did not change. Wes, can you give them an explanation of the process you used to adjust them after that?
So I kind of based it on a percentage increase to make them more consistent. I can't remember exactly how I actually started with the administrator's salary schedule. And I
Okay.
decreased them $100 going across until we got to the last 3 steps, and then there was a $50 difference between the last 3 steps. And then when we looked at the professional staff, the professional staff range 7 was actually getting a larger percentage raise, or even a larger raise than everybody on the administrator's schedule. I think theirs was like 15 something, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
1570 something.
Yeah, almost $1,600. So after I did the administrator schedule, then I went to the professional staff schedule, and I did the same thing. I started with the first one, and then I gradually decreased it down percentage-wise, so that way the increased steps are progressively lower, so that way they're not all the same. And then I set the step exactly the same, kind of like what we did on the teachers and all the other ones, towards a consistent amount all the way down throughout the schedule.
So basically what you have in it mirrors the other schedules that we have throughout the district.
The teachers is a little bit different because on step 6 and step, I think it's 21, there's a larger increase for those years.
Right, with
The rewarding tenure, and then they're also rewarding longevity on step 2021. I think it's like a $2,000 increase on the teacher schedule. But otherwise, if you look down through them, it's almost consistent.
What is that percent?
It's not necessarily a percent, it's more of a fixed number.
Oh, it's a fixed number.
Yeah,
okay.
it's a number. So like all these, so every schedule except for the teacher salary schedule is a fixed raise after step 1. Does that make sense? So like the first column, what is it, $800, $600? So it's $600 all the way through it.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, looking at it in terms of what's the actual effect in terms of money, with the professional staff one, it says in there, if we were to use the current schedule, a step would cost $24,450. If you use the new one, it would cost $25,280. So for this year, it would cost $830 more than if we stayed with the current schedule. However, every year following that, it would save $7,775. So the question is, are you willing to spend $830 more to save almost $8,000 every year following? On the administrative schedule, if we use the current one, the step is $87,723. With the proposed one, it's $90,530. So it would cost $2,807 more. Every year following, it would save $19,404. So it's, do you want to spend $3,000 to to get 19,000 back every year following. Every time we change a salary schedule, we've always used the same procedure. On the new schedule, you take the employee's current rate, you look for the two steps it falls in between, you pick the higher of the two, and then you give a step. And that's what we did with the professional and the administrative staffs. Now, on the professional staff, there are 21 people in that pool. 12 of them will get a larger than normal increase because of the way they fell between the steps. 9 of them will get a smaller increase than they would have, but still an increase. On the administrative staff, there are 57 people. 25 would get a larger increase than they would have. 32 are going to get a smaller increase than they would have. So it's, and then that's the way it is every year with every schedule, just depending on where you fall when you step yourself. Some are going to get more and some are going to get less on a one-year basis.
But in the forthcoming years, it would be less of a jump each time
Correct.
than what they would have had on the previous schedules.
Yes. Okay. That's an accurate assessment.
And that puts all the salary schedules in line
Yes.
to be alike.
Equitable.
Correct. Questions?
Other than the jump at 6 and 10.
Well, on the teacher salary
Teachers
schedule, yeah,
don't.
there is a bump when they hit their tenure year, and like Wes said, around
Is it
20 or 21.
21, teacher. Only the teacher's salary schedule, well, excuse me, teacher and Hilliard's, because they're both teachers. But all the other schedules are not, they're consistent raises. It stays the same amount all the way through it.
So
And
once you're getting tenured, then it's just sort of a
Bonus.
bonus.
Yeah, it's like 800, I got the numbers, I just,
is the administrator's salary schedule tied to the base of the
Not
teachers? Not anymore. It's
It's tied to
stuck
the-
at
it's tied to
the
the
36,
34,
20 or whatever.
no, there's no.
Oh, that's
The
professional,
34,
sorry.
34,985.
And actually, that 3620
But it doesn't make sense.
Oh, it doesn't?
Going forward, if the teachers get a 1% raise, I'll start with the first step, everybody on the first
Social
step, get a
maintenance
1%
have to
increase,
carry a
and then we would
master's degree.
adjust.
Is
Then the
not
step
better
would
less
remain the
than the
same.
assistant maintenance supervisor.
Okay.
So it won't, so it isn't a percentage, so if I get a 1% here, it isn't 1% all the way through it.
Right.
Step,
1%
Right,
at
it's still
the
a-
front, and then it's still
Right.
840 on the
Correct.
administrative schedule, because that's what the
Now, the
number
teacher's
was.
not that way.
But the
The
teacher's
teacher
is
does
not.
increase by
Okay.
percentages.
All the way down. Okay,
Okay. Other questions?
thank you.
Uh-huh. And it's actually, right now, it's on this one.
What's current?
This
The
one is-
current, I'm sorry, the current, because I'm looking at the bottom, but granted, social workers, and they're choosing to work in a school setting, yes, they could make more, but I'm curious as to why social workers are in range 2, in that lower range, and then your assistant maintenance supervisor is in a higher range. Your maintenance supervisor is in a higher range. Social workers have to have a master's degree.
Is this tied to any compensation study that we had done?
The professional salary staff schedule had evolved before I got here. I can't really tell you the history of it. What I can tell you is that if you look at that one and you look at the proposed one, those columns have all been dialed back pretty significantly. If there was an area-
But you still would be assigning that group to range 2.
We didn't do anything with the ranges, no.
Okay, so they would still be assigned to that range, which starts 39,675. And an assistant maintenance supervisor starts at 41.
Could it have to do with supervision of staff? I would think the maintenance supervisor would have staff oversight.
But
A tech
certainly
coordinator?
doesn't need a master's degree and have to work with
Network
the
administrator.
juvenile officers and the system.
I understand that.
I think that the reason I asked if it was tied to the compensation study, because if I remember correctly, I think that's where that came from, is when we did the compensation study and we were looking what other districts were. I think that's how that all fell out.
Other districts don't require.
I'm just saying that
That's what I'm remembering.
that placement there seems highly inequitable.
Don't forget their 12-month.
That makes a big difference, now you're saying.
What was that?
They're 12-month
They're
staff
12
as
months,
well.
so I was trying to think about it, equating it to the teacher's master's column, because I don't have that in front of me, but I was trying to think about that one and wonder how they will compare it to that, since I do have to have a master's degree, but she said they're 12 months as
talking
well,
about
so that
181
So your
changes
daily
too.
rate, you have to really look at the
Right,
daily rate
yeah,
to get
exactly.
that comparison
Yes.
difference.
And Eric, if you look above range 2, it does say teacher master, so see, I think that column is comparable to the teacher master. Isn't that why, I think that's why
It's
that's
still
there.
not a good comparison because of that.
Right, because of the number of days difference.
But social worker could be.
Is
Is that the difference? Because a
days?
social
Well, that's-
worker is.
that makes sense.
Is only 9 months and the maintenance person is a
Okay.
12-month?
I think that would
That-
make,
that
that
would
would
make
make
Could
sense.
possibly be, but now my point is, you're sitting here guessing as to why they're placed there and can't come up with a definitive answer,
The
so.
social workers are the only ones on column 2. They were placed there by themselves on that schedule because they only work 9 months. That's why they're the only group that are on column 2.
Well, there's nobody on 4 and 5.
No. But when we were creating this
We
initially,
didn't place ourselves.
that's why column 2 was there, and it was specifically for the social workers that are 9-month employees. The rest of the people on the schedule are 12-month employees.
Then why do we have a range 4 and a range 5?
In case we ever had a 12-month employee, new position that we would need a range within that. So if a position's created at another time that we don't feel that they've done under a supervisory position or a professional staff on range 7 or 6, then we have those two ranges available to put staff on.
Because we're actually making salary schedules that can last into the future. We're not just taking care of,
So we're
I
not
agree,
creating
but
the wheel all the time.
I'm saying,
so to me, range 2, starting at 39 and range 3 at 41, that's not a whole lot of money difference compared to 181 days and 260 days. So when you put it in that perspective, they're not, paid far above what a social worker is being paid.
No, actually, the social worker would probably come
And they're probably, I'm sure there are supervisions, if you're an assistant supervising person, you're supervising somebody.
We're gonna
I guess
have
I'd-
75 to 100 people.
the magic numbers, Wes, would be a per day rate, is what I guess I'd be.
Well, yeah, I guess if you want to identify it on here, you would just put on here that all the ranges except range 2 are 260, range 2 is a 181 day schedule, that's why.
Maybe you need to make a little disclaimer down at the bottom with that.
You know, I guess we could.
I don't know, but just looking at this,
But I know it was,
We put all the professional staff on one schedule.
no, I understand, I'm just saying, and I know, because I remember last year we've hashed and hashed and hashed. I just, it smacks me as inequitable.
Even after the days and the,
Yeah.
and even after these people supervise 75 to
100.
100 people,
Yeah,
doesn't hit me as equitable.
I mean, but you gotta deal with the courts, you gotta deal with home visits, you have to, I mean, those people don't just work 8 to 3. You're making visits at home in the evenings, you're taking kids to,
Most everybody on our staff doesn't
Daily
just
rate's
work
219.
well, I know.
Professional
I know.
staff.
I'm just,
But a master's degree isn't required for every staff member.
So it's, they're making
That's
it.
not even paying.
so, I'm just throwing that out there for the record. It just seems,
The board decision, December, maybe, I think, was that you wanted to give a step to everybody. Was that December? Okay. The two salary schedules, the only two salary schedules that we touched were these two. The rest of them are identical, correct, Wes?
What's that?
These were the only two we touched, salary schedules.
Yes.
So what I need, basically either a confirmation or a no way on is, do these meet with your approval to take on to meet and confirm in their present form?
Are we gonna visit about the difference in the money issue? By doing this, we save, I'm
mentioned-
sorry, I must have missed that then. Okay, by doing this, we save this much, but then we're gonna potentially save,
Well,
But we don't save anything.
we spend
Now.
this
Spend
year.
initially,
More.
but then we
then
save
eventually it's ungodly, the amount.
Yeah,
next year.
We spend a little over 3,000 to get back a little over 28,000.
Every year.
On one,
Every
then what's
year.
the
And we
other
spend
one?
3,000 one year to get
Yeah, that's-
28,000 every
got
year.
it.
Yeah, it's
I'm sorry if I missed that, I
Yeah,
apologize.
long-term planning, that makes
75
sense.
on one and 4 on the others. Other discussion before we take a straw poll.
And that was basically what was done with the others, because that was one of the
That's
administrators came to
exactly
me
what-
today about that. It was
Exactly
exactly
what
the
was
same.
done with the others.
The gap became smaller for the
Yes.
other people.
Okay, I would like you to vote either yes, we're okay with taking these on, or no, we're not. All of you who are okay with it, raise your hand, please. Those who are not. And some abstentions, apparently.
I'm abstaining.
Me too.
Okay. That is your right as an individual,
Me as well.
as long as you are you a citizen of the United States?
Last time I voted. Although I wanted to revoke that last week.
I was gonna say, she hasn't been lately.
She was
but-
tempted lately.
I was.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't need to talk about the administrative.
Then the other two things that are in there, I want to get real quickly on the extra duty schedule. I sent you two of these, I believe. The current one was first, and then the proposed one. I just want to tell you what the differences are. There are not very many. Through board action, there was a process where we decided that we were going to restructure the curriculum advisors set up, and they went from 20-some to 5 foot a time. So core curriculum advisors, which shows up on the current one, that will be taken off because it's no longer, there's no longer that designation. Those folks will be full-time curriculum advisors and have extra days on their contract, 30 days, they'll all be 211 employees. And that was all figured into the $125,000 savings that we got from going that direction. So core curriculum advisors would come off, that's already been done by board action. On the second page, category 13, way down the list, honor choir is listed on that one. Darren Verbick told me that that is no longer offered, so that would come off of there. They're not doing it, so we won't pay something that they're not doing. Category 13 on the
So we just have percussion then.
current one, yeah, ProStart is what's on my sheet here. Percussion is 8.
I thought you said 8.
No,
13.
13. XIII. Honor choir would come off of there, it's not being offered any longer. On the last page, the current one had summer school on there. We took that off because the last year, they have their own salary schedule. So it's no longer listed on here. The board has approved, I think it was in December also approved the summer school schedule for the summer of 18. So there's an entire document about that. And then the summer activities, as we go through our discussions there, that may or may not be modified. We had spoken, I think I sent you either in August or September, last school year, we had lengthy discussions about potential additional extra duties that people were doing, and people wrote up, and gave us a synopsis of what they did and why they thought it should be added.
Justification.
A justification. My vote would be I think we've got to put all of those on hold until and I think part of what we sent them was if we have a new revenue source that we would entertain those. So I've still got all those in a folder, and when we get another revenue source, then we would look at those again for whatever school year it is. Everybody okay with that? Anybody see anything on the extra duty schedule that you want to discuss?
I just have a question about athletic supervision, and it has parentheses coach. What is that?
Which category is
I
that?
think you're looking at
Oh,
the additional
sorry.
pay
I'm on
Oh,
rates.
you're on, that's on the additional pay rates. We'll get to that in a second.
Okay, sorry.
Anything on the extra duty?
Why'd you circle on the new one, the band camp, and was that something you circled for a reason?
Oh,
or-
yes, I circled that for a reason because intuitively to me it would make sense that if we do completely away with summer activities and we tell coaches, hey, you know, it's part of your responsibility to open the weight room in the summer if it's a continuation of your school year duties, that the same would apply to band camp and drumline. If we leave weightlifting in some form, then we would need to come back and say, well, do we want to leave the band camp and drumline? I think if we totally do away with weight room, then we should also do away with band camp and drumline. I think it's the same process. So when we have that decision made, then we can talk more about this.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on extra duty? All right, let's move on to the additional pay rates. And this document ended up being a mess, and I'll try and explain it as best I can. Change the date at the top. Darren Verbick suggested, you want to look here so you see the code? Okay. Darren Verbick, I sent out to all the directors and everybody who would have a voice in any of these additional pay rates, hey, do you think there's something that needs to be added, deleted, or changed? And so what I got back is what is on here for us to discuss. Darren Verbick said the accompanist for district competition was at $15 an hour. He said the average in the Kansas City area was $23.50, and he was suggesting $22 an hour. Typically, we're talking about probably 30 hours of work, so you would be talking about an additional $210, somewhere in there. We don't need to make any decisions on these tonight. I just want to get it in front of you, so I'll explain to you what they are, and then we'll, if there are questions at the end, we can. The chaperone for JROTC summer camp, I got an email from one person who had some dealings with this and just said, is this necessary? Are we going to be, basically with all the other cuts that we're doing, do we need to do a summer camp for JROTC? If not, we could save that money. The counselor's summer scheduling, and this is something, maybe if you guys know, educate me here, I didn't have time to ask. I know the counselors get extra days, and so I'm wondering why there's also the counselor's summer scheduling. It would seem like summer scheduling would be included in their extra days. Paul, you have any idea?
That was for summer school this year, wasn't it? We were able to do summer school as counselors this year, and we got paid $25 an hour.
Yeah, that was on the summer school salary schedule.
That wasn't scheduling though, I don't think, was it?
And I don't know what it is.
Okay, that's something, I just need to look into that and find out.
Sure.
I have no idea.
I guess I assumed that
Don't
in
want
their
to be
extra
double
days,
dipping.
in their extra days is when they would be doing the scheduling, but I don't know. But we'll check into that, that just came up on the radar. Denise Kohlhauer, Dr. Kohlhauer suggested toward the bottom of the page there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that are listed at an hourly rate, a particular hourly rate, and she said she had suggested moving them all to that individual's hourly rate. So some of them would probably be higher, some would probably be lower. I need to talk to my good friend Wes at some point and see if we can get a projection of whether that would increase or decrease our costs. So we'll look into that. There would be some consistency if we either say everything's going to be at that employee's hourly rate, or we're going to leave it a set. Throughout this schedule, some of them are a set hourly rate, some of them say the employee's hourly rate. So just something for us to look at. On the next page, Dr. Kohlhauer suggested that MANT training, the 1, 2, 3, 4th one down, she suggested it be $350 per class instead of $250, and her rationalization was that a presenter at New Teacher Institute gets $350. My 2 cents on this subject is that once you've done MANT training, there's no preparation to redo MANT training again and again and again. Whoever presents at New Teacher Institute is going to spend some time preparing, and I think that was the justification initially why it paid more. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Because you have to create a new.
You have to create
is that
a
right?
new.
For the new teachers,
Yeah.
so that would be brand new, but what you're saying is that with the MANT training, is that, what's that?
Mantis.
It's just always the same.
Yeah, so there's no prep after you've taught it 10 times, you're not gonna spend any time prepping it, you just do it. So that was the issue there. On the next page, special education interpreters, Dr. Kohlhauer's suggestion is that she wanted to move that one to a set rate of $20, and I asked her why, and she said, I know of people that we can get that will do it for that rate. And that would be a savings over what we're paying now. Fairly significant savings, actually.
How many employees would that affect?
That would be very few. Right now, we have 5. We had 6 last year, I think it's 5 this year. 5 interpreters, and that would be if they have to go to an,
Oh, this is, yeah, obviously.
this is outside of the
extra,
normal
yes,
day.
okay.
Yeah, during the normal day, they would get their hourly rate as per the salary schedule. So
Would
that might-
$20 be more than their hourly rate for the
No.
average?
No.
No, it's not more than their hourly rate.
Uh-uh.
He said it
No,
would
like I
be
said,
a
that
savings.
would be a
It'd be a
definite
savings.
savings if we opted to go that way. And she was, she has a pool of retirees basically who do interpretation services that she knows will do it for that. Dr. Haynes, kind of toward the middle of the page there, suggested that it would, if we say activities out, SROs for activities outside of the normal duty day, we pay them for a lot of things besides basketball and football jamboree. And everything we pay them for, we pay them $30 an hour. So we could just make it all encompassing. If you're an SRO and you're working outside of hours, we pay you $30. So that was the essence of the changes there. So if you have any constituents in your group who might be affected by any of those, why don't you between now and next meeting talk with them and say, hey, here's what's being proposed, what do you think? And then we'll try to make some decisions next month.
Dr. Kraus, your TMC hourly rate part-time limit would change.
My who, where?
Your TMC hourly rate part-time limit.
And why is that, Wes?
Because it says 750, state of Missouri is now 785.
Is TMC in Missouri?
Where is that
Sometimes I don't. What did you say it was,
can move them to Washington.
785?
It's out here on the wall.
That's why I'm asking.
We'll pay them whatever the wall says.
Yeah.
Coaches for off-season weights, like when they're doing weights outside, like, you know. but
Okay.
Well, that doesn't
I
affect
don't
the
know
other ones,
if
it's just the
it
minimum.
ever got approved during
So then they're-
now, if that's,
All right.
That's why I'm asking.
is the athletic supervision, parentheses, coach, $1,000 per season,
What is that?
Where are you at on your?
As I understand that,
that was the very first page.
yeah, it's on the first page.
The fifth one down?
That's always been kind of a mystery to me, but as I understand it, there are occasions where we assign someone to supervise an activity on the road, for instance, but they are also coaching for us. Does anybody else know? Dr. Newhart, do you know on that one?
So would that be
I
like?
thought that it was, you didn't want to get another coach, so you have somebody
Yeah, there-
supervise, because there's 2 activities and there's
On
only
the
one
additional
coach.
pay rates,
The
the
coach goes with the
fifth one
varsity
down.
and then the supervisor.
Sixth one down, that's
And
what
does
there's
the other or
stipend.
something. That's the way I understood that from
First
last time
page
we
or
talked
something.
about it.
first page,
It's-
athletic supervision.
Just what Pete Herrick said, is the what reason for it. It's for, if they're to go, if they don't have enough coaches or something to cover
Okay.
the other event.
Okay.
So it's not for.
So it's to be a coach, not the
Yeah,
supervision
it's-
piece.
Well, yeah, they're supervising the kids.
That
it's
isn't
not really
already,
coaching.
that isn't
Okay.
already
But
on a
they're not
stipend?
technically
No.
coaches.
Can I take?
It's like if they only have one coach for the sport, and they have 2 events,
Oh, okay.
so then
Oh,
they.
cause like,
Particularly at
yeah,
golf.
there's
Golf,
golf,
I think it's-
and they go to a varsity tournament and a JV tournament, you gotta send someone.
Someone
to the
over
JV.
to
They go
supervise
two
the
different
kids.
So they get 1,000, oh,
They're
For the
there for
season.
the entire
they're for the whole
For the season.
season.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, I get it.
That's
I just was like, who is that? What is that?
Okay, that makes sense.
Golf and tennis, I think, are predominantly the ones that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they can be
Dr. Kraus
totally different.
pays nutrition services,
There we go.
student part-time, employees like each
Nutritional
It's
services.
on the second page. It says 765.
Okay,
Where did you see?
we'll pay them like the law says to. Nutrition services student part-time, 765. Middle of the second page. Well, actually, that's, yeah, middle of the second page.
Whatever
And
page you're on.
I've got a couple of questions too, so.
Okay, what are they?
Well, you've got the middle school, Friday school, and you have detention. So middle school, quote, Friday school is listed at 20 per hour, but after-school detention is at 10 per hour.
I would think $20 would get people to stay on Fridays. Who wants to stay on Fridays and do detention?
We do
That might have
ours,
been
we
an
do ours on
incentive.
Wednesdays though.
Somebody explained that to me at one point, and I don't really remember. The only thing that I think I remember was that there was an active program of sorts that they had to prepare for and implement with the kids in the Friday school versus detention was basically make sure they don't kill each other.
So if not, then, if there's not that active program, then take that Friday school down to $10. And detention is detention.
Several of you are middle school people. Do you know of a middle school who is doing a Friday school?
We do Wednesday schools at Truman. We don't do Friday.
We do Friday school
Is
from
that the
3 to
only
5.
day? Is it every day or just Fridays?
Well, for one of us to do it, it's only on Fridays. If it's other days during the week, then administration does it.
Okay, I'll get more information on that.
So can you have Friday school on Wednesday?
I know, that's kind of what I was
That's what I'm saying, it
thinking.
wouldn't be, if they're getting paid $20 on Friday, it shouldn't be any different than Wednesdays.
That's why I'm saying it needs to be all the
People
same.
that want to stay on Friday.
Yeah,
It needs to all
I'll-
go to $10.
I'll get more information about that, see what,
And then
When I took over
Reader's
ISS.
Workshop, $25 per hour.
I
There
will take
were,
that.
huh?
So I will take that.
Yeah, there were a
I did
couple
it
things
last
in
year
there, I
on Friday.
thought, I had said something to you, I remember going through this before and saying, the Reader's Workshop, $25 per hour, and then the reading assessment, I don't remember what that was.
Dr. Norman,
I think those were things that we suggested you remove.
okay. The Reader's Workshop.
And we cleaned this up one time. and-
I remember
First year.
cleaning this up one time, and yet some of these things
I did
popped
too.
This is
back
as
up
of April
on.
24th is last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was besides Reader's Workshop?
Right under it, reading assessment.
There were two lines on the reading assessment.
And we're believing that those were to have been removed,
Correct.
and they have risen from the dead.
Somehow they
Kill them
have.
again.
We'll kill them again.
And you see that's on the top of the next page too. It's reading assessment.
And the summer middle school benchmark, I mean,
That can go to.
at one time years ago, we were writing benchmarks in the summer, but with Acuity or now, the iReady, we don't do that anymore.
Don't need it.
I am always welcome any removals.
Lori, are you finished with your question?
Yeah, that was pretty.
I just had a couple of questions, like, one would be, gatekeeping gets paid more than teachers covering the course. And they get paid $15 an
Get
hour.
paid
versus-
more than what?
paid more than a teacher covering someone else's course.
Okay.
Okay, so I just didn't, because I wasn't here whenever you all cleaned it up or did any of that, I didn't know if
I think that's been that way for quite some time. I don't remember changing it since I've been here.
I just.
But they're working the evening and weekend.
I was just wondering what that was. And then the other one was like on things like PD preparation, where there's $100 maximum. Is there a reason for the maximum?
Yes, it got abused till all get out.
The $10 for teacher coverage, you're already getting paid.
And you're gonna make an
Right, okay.
additional
So
$10.
that's why you get an addition. So we're giving you a little extra
Right.
because you're already getting paid for the time. That's why it's only $10.
Okay, I was just asking that question. Thank you for the
Great
clarification.
explanation.
And then in terms of the PD preparation, I know it was getting abused, but the 4 hours of preparation seems small. Only, I know this because I've done PD for the last couple of years, and it's more than 4 hours, and I'm not trying to claim 100 hours, but, like an 8-hour maximum seems a little bit more fair. Maybe, like if you, I know when we did PD for last year, like it was hours and hours of preparation, and to get paid $100 for that preparation feels like a slap in the face that you're taking your own time to do it.
Okay, something we can.
Just as something to consider for the future.
Maybe not at a time when we're cutting.
Right, and I understand that, it's just as I'm looking at it.
And Dr. Kraus, I would ask too about Project Lead the Way, because I remember seeing this before. It's a 2-week course and we pay them, I'm assuming we pay them to attend the course because they're gonna be a Project Lead the Way
Well,
teacher, but why
It's
do they?
actually changing.
We don't really pay them to attend because it's during the summer. We pay their registration, we pay their meals, we pay.
Okay, well, that's what but this
$200.
says $25 per hour,
Yeah.
maximum 8 hours a day, so it sounds like you're paying them to attend on top of paying registration and meals and that.
Yes.
But we're not doing that.
That needs to be looked at because it's actually going online.
There are a lot of things with that particular program that I feel like need to be assessed, but.
So we
that
need
would
to
be
question.
just one of them.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better to think that we're not paying for them to have the course and paying them to attend the course, just so they can have a job the next year teaching the class. That's wrong.
We are paying.
Or do that to all our masters people.
We are paying $29,322 toward team and TSA extra duties. And one of the responses I got back from several principals was they felt like all of that work was getting done during the day. And if it's an extra duty, you shouldn't be doing it during the day. It should be
Right.
outside of it. So that's something.
And that was
else.
how much savings?
Well, we're paying out in extra duty stipends $29,322 to a number of people, not each, that's a cumulative.
Right, accumulative of stuff that's being done during the day, not as extra duty.
According to one or two
Gosh.
principals.
$30,000 is a big chunk.
So again, like I said, I think that needs some more investigation.
And maybe we need to
What?
try to go back and see where we cleaned this up before and
Oh,
make sure that we
Needs some,
remove
yeah.
the stuff that we.
The registration, $100 a day?
The what?
Registration, $100 per day?
On the third page.
We had to clock in.
That is, and this is just a guess, so if anybody knows differently, tell me. I believe that is for classified staff who are not on duty yet that get asked to come in and do registration.
But we had to clock in.
Although you clocked in, you still got $100.
We still got the whole $100.
I remember talking with Jenny Powers about that, you still. you
The
clocked
reason we do
in.
that, so that way, everything on the additional pay rate is supposed to be done outside of school hours. The reason we have them use the time clock is so that we can track that they
That they were
actually
actually
did the
there.
work. It doesn't matter how long it takes them to do it, unless it's an hourly rate. But that way, it verifies for them, so they don't have to fill out any paperwork or nothing. They clock in when they start, clock out, and that verifies it.
So my point is, that needs to be clarified, because otherwise, by golly, every time I sat and worked registration, why wasn't I getting $100? And
Well,
the high school
but the other
teachers who
thing
go in and help.
too that you might want to take into consideration is, so at the middle school level, our registration, we have 2 different registrations
Right.
during the day.
Normal hourly.
There are some people that only work one of those.
Right.
And some people that work the other. So each person, instead of one person getting paid $100,
2 people are getting
2
paid
people are getting paid $100.
So it should be, if you work half the day, you get paid $50.
Yeah. as long as
I didn't
you
get paid
exceed the normal wage.
Oh, I probably mistaken.
I didn't get paid.
Oh my, I didn't get it.
But $100 a day.
Good thing you serve on this committee, you learn how.
I know.
That's
You can
the
volunteer for
administrator's
that.
responsibility, to make
No,
sure
I did
that
that.
her people are getting paid.
That just
Do a little more
started, that just
research
started.
on that.
And then
We
I've
just
got one
started
more,
getting
which is probably a you to Dr. Kolar question, but
So,
the SPED assessment and scoring. I mean, I taught SPED for 12 years. I'm sorry, I had to score those on tests. That was part of my job requirement.
And probably do they give the assessment during the school day,
And again,
when
this
the
is.
students are
yes.
there?
I
Well, this one
believe
says
that we have
administration and
times where
scoring.
we have an outside person come in and
That is
do the
correct.
testing.
that is correct.
Right.
And
And
then
then
this one says scoring.
we pay them for scoring the assessments as well.
So it's when we have to call in outside, it's not just automatically paid to
It's not
special
that-
ed teachers.
Yeah, it's
So-
not, for the, if we have to hire, bring somebody outside.
Well, then, to me, that needs to be clarified in there.
For outside,
And one of them
We do when
says,
they call and ask us if they're ready to pay for it.
So it needs to be on the big.
one of them
Yeah, me
says administration and scoring of, and that's $110 per assessment. But then the next one down says scoring of
Scoring of.
assessments is $17 per hour. And obviously the rest of that first one isn't there.
probably if they give it and have to score it, it should be one fee for both. because you can't give it and not come up with the score. So we pay them either $110 to do both or $17.
I'll get some
Or
clarification.
$17 to do both. I think they'd come for $17.
All right, anything else? All right, real quickly, and then we'll break and we'll do a little meet and conferring. I put 2 calendars in here for you because there's been some discussion about these in the past. Outside of these two employee groups, paras and library facilitators, we're anticipating everybody else's calendar looks the same other than, I mean, for teachers, obviously, there's one more instructional day because we don't have the Eclipse Day and all of that stuff. That's the same way everybody would, instead of getting paid for the Eclipse Day, it will be a working day, but the same number of paid days. With the paras, we opted to leave, at least at this point, the schedule exactly the same in terms of 176 calendar days. What that does is doesn't have the paras working the parent-teacher conferences. Those are not included in the 176 days. So if you look October 19th and April 19th, oddly enough, both have ends, which means you're not working. And then if you look at the date under the 18th, it says 48, and then it goes to 49 on the Monday, and in April from 156 to 157. So it's not a work day, not a paid day. Does that make sense? Okay, we felt like with our budget constraints that this was not the time to add back days. It's no less days for the paras. They'll still have the same amount of days plus a step, so they would be getting a raise. Questions, comments on that?
So, I get that paras are support staff, so does that mean all support staff?
Anybody
I guess
that-
my question is, I'm not a para anymore, but I'm also support staff that has followed a para schedule that continue like last year.
I think the answer to that would be yes. She's the ISS.
ISS. Instructional.
Jack of all trades, laundry
Yeah,
attendant.
it would be the same as what you have this year.
Because
Okay.
the ISS doesn't fall under paras anymore?
It's a different calendar.
It's
Yeah.
a different calendar.
So yes, your calendar would be the same number of days next year as this year.
Which
Isn't para.
followed the paras calendar.
Well, if that's the case,
Then
then it would be
that's the-
176.
Okay.
So then the same dates would apply to them as well.
Well, I don't know that that's necessarily, probably yes. Yeah, there would be no need for ISS people to be,
You'll have a
Because
calendar.
there's no school there, those days.
okay. So that's the reasoning there. Any huge issues?
And our calendar is the same calendar as last year's, as far as our department's number of days? Are we the same number of days?
Yes.
Okay.
Only this year, instead of the director deciding when you would work, you'll actually follow your calendar.
Okay.
Is this meeting the need of the PD and everything else?
Yes,
prior
they
to
are,
school starts?
they have 3 days before
School starts.
school starts.
So we just have to make sure our principals understand that they don't do training that these people are supposed to be at until the 13th of August, and then you can do the training because everybody's there.
That gives
Those
two-
staff meetings.
gives
2
two
years in a row, it's
companies,
been a zoo.
Yes.
Yeah. And
How many,
Amen.
just to remind me, how many days before the first day of school are teachers back?
Teachers come on the 9th.
So that's,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids come here.
so 5
There are
days.
3
Teachers get
days.
2 more days.
So teachers have 2 more days. So that first day back is a
Work day.
a work day.
Theoretically.
Then that second day is the concern.
Yep.
yeah, that there's not a full staff meeting where
Right.
these people are left out, or that there's not intruder
Right.
training
So
where
there's
these
only
people are
one
left
day
out.
that we really have to worry about
I know.
buildings not
Even when we
taking.
tried to
We
Yeah,
still,
really too,
and we
because-
still didn't
Yes,
come up
but
with
one
a
of them is
consensus on
directly
the
before the first day
intruder
of school.
training, right?
Right.
We still don't know what's gonna happen with that.
Then we could take care
Yeah, because we had talked about the videotaping it and watching.
I thought it was gonna be at each of the high schools, and feeder schools would go to the high schools for intruder
I know.
training. That's what I remember it.
We
That-
talked
that
about
was
that,
all
but we didn't ever
discussion.
come.
We didn't,
But
we never
she-
made a
Marley
decision.
didn't, Marley didn't have an answer for us that time.
We're just in the process of planning PD for next year, the calendar, so I've made a note that we'll.
Okay, so parent calendar remaining the same, everybody good with that? The other one is the library facilitator calendar. We did opt, and we'll get some feedback from you guys, to add a day to theirs to make it from 178 to 179. The day that was added is Friday, October 19th, and they won't actually show up on that. That's the parent-teacher conference week. The reason we added the library facilitators back was we got a lot of feedback from principals that there were activities, particularly at the elementary level, that their librarians were necessary for.
You mean at the beginning of the year?
It's
Both
called.
times.
At
Oh,
both.
both times,
Both
okay.
times.
They do book fairs.
And,
Oh, book fair, of course.
yeah, and the rationale was 150 paras costs a lot more than 14 library facilitators.
So they're required to work parent-teacher conferences.
Yes, yes.
So they will have
Some
both
of them
of those.
teach
How's
classes.
that reflected on this calendar?
Because the
If you
19th
look at
of,
the day before,
Because
the
it
day
goes
after.
from 19, or it goes from 49 to 51. So day 50 is counted on the 19th there in October, and in
the 19th.
April, the 19th of
I would
April.
suggest you make a legend on both these two.
We will, just like we did last year.
Yep.
These were still in draft form, that's why we didn't put the letters.
But we're actually adding back one day to theirs.
Yes,
Okay.
and that would be all the days I would anticipate adding.
So they would be back, the first 5 days, how many of those days would they be back?
They come on the 10th.
So they would be back 4 out of the 5.
Yes. Questions on that? Okay. To me, it looks like it is 6:15, which really means it's 6:12 because that clock is fast. But unless there are burning issues, I would like to adjourn this meeting and do a little meeting and conferring. Everybody okay with that? The meeting.
It's just you guys, just you guys.
Meet and confer team are the 6 of you and some of us else.
Whoever.
All right, thank you very much.
get the tone.
Let's take a 5-minute break, meet and confer people, and we'll confer again.